the call sign in the flight plan, or if the address matches the ICAO 24-bit code in the flight plan. So if either of those are true, the manual coupling will be accepted. If none of those are true, then it will be accepted or refused based on the 3A code. So if you have a 3A mismatch but you have a 24-bit match, then a manual coupling will be accepted because it's a higher priority. But if you don't have any of these, then it will be yes or no, purely based on the 3A. When we talked about the manual coupling before, how a manual decoupling, how it blocked a track will remain blocked until one of these three things has changed. So let's say that I force a decouple on the air situation display, that will remain uncoupled until one of these three criteria get changed. The accept or refused. So that's when you select and go couple, select, and it will say coupling refused, or it will couple.
Refuse we cannot couple manual, right?
If you try and couple a track manually for one, it doesn't match. If you get an error, if one of those things don't match, the call sign, the 24-bit code, or the SSR code, if you try and couple a track manually to a flight plan that has nothing matching,
the system will say no,
nothing matching.
Nothing.
Doesn't care about area, just those three criteria.
You really wanting it to couple is not going to make it couple. It's got to.
คือไม่มี24 บิตในแผนด้วย
ACC นี่เรา
ไม่ต้องคอนโทรลเปิด access ไปไหนก็ไป
ยอมรับ
access หรือ reject ตามมาเลยนะ
refuse
Any questions?
ทำไมถึงอะไรอันนี้ก็คือหมดโค้ด
No? No more? Do it all again? No. Yeah, let's talk about inactive and proactive and coordinated.
Just quick question.
No, question time's over.
Because I heard that you just reform some document, right? So is that the document that you can provide to us?
No.
No, is that your secret process?
That's the
Because
SRS.
it's like a
You've got Eurocat, right?
Sorry?
Have a look at your old Eurocat documents.
Yeah.
It's already in there.
You've probably got one called the SSS.
SSS?
Yeah, that's pretty well. With these things, it's very much the same. Yeah. Yeah.
ไม่ใช่ของ SE ก็มีผมเคยเห็นอยู่ที่เป็น S ของ SE อ่ะอยากเข้าสักการเห็นอยู่เคล็ดลับอะไรกันอะไรเพราะว่าเนี่ยที่เขาพูดมาเราเหลือทั้งหมดอยู่ในเดี๋ยวคุยในตอนแต่เราเข้าใจอย่างนี้เราก็จะเข้าใจมากขึ้นโอเคเดี๋ยว
Very similar.
Yeah, just add WAM, basically. Add WAM and Mode S, so you're there, man.
It's fairly similar.
Yeah, I still go into the rule list sometimes. Okay, the approach path monitoring function.
You're going to update the online.
I'm going to update the online training because we've given up. We've tried to make this change for a long time, and it's because it's coming from France and it's a safety net change, it's really, really expensive. So we can either change this or we can deliver fun stuff like the airport capacity enhancement and DMAN and other good things. So we've just given up. So the mnemonic that you get in the system, oh my God, I can't even remember what, it should be APM. What do we get for MSOR now? Minimum is MSA? Yeah. So when you get an MSA warning, it means that you're getting an MSOR warning in the system, minimum safe altitude warning. And when you see MSA, it means that you could also be getting an approach path monitoring warning. It's the same mnemonic is being used because it indicates that the aircraft is below its minimum safe altitude. How you would normally configure the system, if we talk about this is the TMA and here's our runway, then we would normally define this area and potentially that area as MSOR inhibition, so that means if you see an alert in this area that says MSA, then the controller needs to know that that is an approach path monitoring function. If it happens out here, the approach path monitoring is limited, so out there it's actually a minimum safe altitude warning. In both cases, we haven't bothered to change it because in both cases there's nothing the controller can do. It's simply that he could possibly alert the pilot, look, you're below your minimum safe altitude, confirm visual, that's really all you can do. So to make this change, to give a different acronym, it's in our pile of things to do, but our pile of things to do is very large, and this is not seen as delivering very good value for the customer. It's nice, but it's not really critical. So we're going to continue to ignore it forever, pretty well. How's that for customer transparency? All right. So we define according to the airport runways file. So even though it doesn't say approach path monitoring, in the airport runway section of DPR, you can specify exactly what the approach path zone looks like. And there's a few components to it. You need to have, you align it to a runway for a start because the processing is very specific according to the runway assigned to the aircraft. So if he's landing 01, for example, and you change his runway to 19, even though he's still landing 01, the approach path monitoring will not work. Okay, it's applying completely the wrong parameters. So we have a link of the runway. We've got a zone inside which it's applied, which is defined by a radial distance from the touchdown point. So we might say, or we want processing out to 20 nautical miles. So let's have a look at Chiang Mai and let's see what we've got.
Yesterday was 1,000 metres.
Oh, gee, that's not very big.
Or 10,000 maybe.
10,000 metres could be good.
Yeah, 10.
10 กิโลเท่าไหร่5 ไมล์10,000นะ5 ไมล์เมื่อวานดูอยู่ยังไม่ถึงรอบอันนี้มันก็เป็นสเปคของตัวโลกาไลเซอร์ดีมโลกาไลเซอร์ประมาณ
Yeah, it was 10,000 and the inhibition was 2,500. Finally, needed on me to say, but it's in the media at the moment.
Okay. All right, so I've got our radius in which we define, we want the function, so that's currently set to 10 kilometres. Okay, inside that, we now set an inhibition area. And this is again based on the touchdown point, so let's put that one in red. Okay, so here's inhibition. Inside this area, the function is suppressed. So you do not get an aircraft reporting once he's inside that. So At the moment, we have that defined as
2,500
feet,
meters.
meters. Okay. 2.5 kilometre radius is currently our inhibition. Okay, we then apply a width of the strip, so we work out how wide the runway is.
150 meters.
150 metres. I guess that's either side of the. Yeah, I don't think it's centred on because it's applied each side. Yep. So I get the width of the strip, and then we apply a lateral angle to that. So we decide exactly what sort of splay do we want. So that forms this angle here. Okay, and that's currently set to 15 degrees. So that will be a 15 degree tangent, I guess, from the perpendicular parallel line for the runway width. Okay, so that means that inside now this area, where I hash it blue, okay, that becomes our area inside which the approach path monitoring will take place. These are the lateral limits. There's also, if we were to look at the same thing, here's our runway, here's our touchdown point. We define the glide slope for the runway, which is normally 3.0 degrees. And then we apply a buffer underneath that, which is expressed as a delta off the 3 degrees, and normally that'll be set to, I don't know, something like 0.2 or something. So this should be the glide, 0.24. Yep. So that means 0.24, so that would be at 2.76 degrees becomes our glide slope for the function. And unlike MSOR, which is a predictive alert, APM is a positional alert. So that means that the aircraft must actually be below this arbitrary glide slope to generate a warning, or must be outside the lateral limits. Yeah, so out here we'd also get alerting. So below here and outside here. If the aircraft comes below this slope, which is glide slope minus the glide factor.
You said above.
No, you could go to flight level 8 billion and it'd be happy, because it's only to detect if it's below. Yeah, so if you're shooting rockets, and remember that this area also cuts off, so there is no alerting inside that zone either. So once the aircraft passes 2.5 kilometres on final approach, there's no more APM function for that track. Yeah, 2.5. That's the current settings for Chiang Mai, but it's adaptable so that you can change it. Now, because MSOR is predictive, and this is not, this is based on real-time data, it is absolutely critical that you define an MSOR inhibition area that covers this part of the system. Because otherwise, MSOR being predictive, if you had an aircraft that was above glide slope and trying to come down to reach glide slope, the MSOR would be predicting that the aircraft will go through the glide slope and would generate an MSOR, but because all you see is MSOR, and if he's at 10 miles, you go, oh, that means he's approach path monitor. No, it doesn't. It means you've got MSOR. So you absolutely have to suppress with an MSOR inhibition area inside this area that you want this processing to take place in. And then when you get an MSA in the track label, it means that the guy's below glide slope.
So at the moment, they've got no M-store definition at all.
And no MSOR definition, then it's not going to interfere with the processing, is it?
Maybe in the data set here, there's no M-store definition.
เดี๋ยวแรกมันก็จะไม่มี M2 Final มันมีเพราะไอ้พวกแพดมอนิเตอร์นี่ใช่ไหม AP มันอยู่
Okay, for the processing, this doesn't apply if the aircraft is assigned a visual approach using the CFL selector. Okay, so we suppress this functionality when you assign it a visual approach. Does nothing if you assign an instrument approach procedure. It's only a visual approach. It says it displays MA.
That was back
นอกเส้น
Yeah, it's we tried to align it to the FAA stuff.
APM จะไม่มีจุด work
เอ็ม
แล้วเอ็นรีวิวว่ามันคนละ
ครับ
วันนี้จะไม่ได้ทำงาน
ครับ
I know this is an MSOs. There's still a hang up from that.
ไม่นะอันนี้ถ้าอยู่ตรงนี้ไม่โชว์โชว์ได้
ไอ้ที่เขาเขียนแผนภาพมานี่คืออะไรครับ
ก็โชว์เนี่ยแค่อยู่พื้นที่ตรงเนี้ย
ครับ
ตรงนี้จะเป็นพื้นที่ที่แอปโพสผ่านทำงานก็คือกรณีที่เครื่องไม่อยู่ในมุมไกด์สโลปต่ำกว่าไกด์สโลปเราเริ่มอยู่ในตรงนี้อันนี้มันจะเตือนแต่ถ้าเข้ามาถึง 2.5 ไมล์เมื่อไหร่ก็คือตัดทิ้ง
ไม่เตือน
ว่าแต่ว่าเครื่องใกล้จะชนเมื่อไหร่นี่ต้องเซฟไว้หมดแล้วก็เป็นไปได้
แต่ว่าไอ้เรื่องที่ว่ามีอะไรโมดิฟายเดียวแล้วถ้าเกิดที่ไหนว่ามีตัวคือตรงนี้
ก็คือเอาไว้เตือนได้
Well, in your current system definition, you don't have MSOR defined, so it's not. It's only using APM.
อะไรนะ
มันบินอยู่นี่ได้